Don't you dare come to my graduation ceremony. If a plain old lady like you shows up, you'll be the laughingstock of everyone. It's my big day, so stay away." The words of my daughter, Emily, about becoming the laughingstock of everyone, made me dizzy. She clearly doesn't think of me as family. To her, I am an embarrassment. "Hey, old lady. Where are you right now?" As soon as I pressed the call button, Emily's screeching voice pierced my ears. Her tone was hurried, and her anxiety was palpable. She seemed to be in a state of panic. "Leaving a silly note like that and thinking you'll get away with it? Where are you? Come home right now." I could also hear the voice of my husband, Mark. Both were frantic. "My name is Linda Johnson. I'm a 39-year-old housewife. I've been juggling a part-time office job at a local real estate agency, raising Emily, and doing household chores for over a decade. I married Mark 12 years ago. He had Emily from his previous marriage. I met Mark at the workplace where I worked before we got married. I was working at a construction company, and Mark was there for sales. Our company was tough on contractors, but Mark always came with a smile and a positive attitude, which I admired. I once recommended a product he was selling to my company. I wanted to be of help to him. As a result, his company got the contract. That led to us going out for meals several times, deepening our relationship, and eventually, he proposed. I happily accepted his proposal and started preparing for marriage, quitting my job in the process. Just before our wedding, Mark confessed that he was living alone with his 6-year-old daughter. At first, I thought it was a lie. It was hard to believe. But it was true. I met Emily a week before the ceremony. She was shy, hiding behind Mark and not coming out in front of me. That's when I decided. I'll live with her, for her. I thought I would make her a respectable adult. I decided to take care of her until she graduated high school. I don't know why, but I couldn't forget her anxious eyes peeking out from under Mark. So, I decided to marry Mark. It was my first marriage, and my family was strongly against it. My father was particularly furious, saying it was nonsensical and that I was being mocked, but I went against my parents' wishes and married Mark. If I had listened to my parents at that time, I might have avoided the hell that was about to begin. It's been 12 years since that marriage. Emily is now 18 and about to graduate from high school. Normally, it would be a moment of joy. But I couldn't feel happy about it. The thought of making her a respectable adult, which I had when I decided to marry, lingered in my mind. "Hey, old lady. Where's my t-shirt? Where did you put it? You didn't steal it, did you?" Emily began calling me old lady 2 years after we started living together. She used to be kind in the beginning. She gradually got used to me, but then suddenly started treating me rudely and calling me an old lady. "Is this the t-shirt you're looking for?" I took it out of the folded laundry and handed it to Emily. "Why did you wash it? What if it shrinks? Normally, you should take it to the cleaners." "You're so clueless. Really, so dense." I had hand-washed and air-dried the t-shirt, thinking the fabric would be damaged at the cleaners. But I couldn't say this to Emily, and all I could do was apologize. Emily snatched it from my hand, muttering, "You're so useless," before walking away. Her words were sharp, piercing my heart. I couldn't argue back, just bowed my head. I couldn't understand why Emily had become so harsh with me. Initially, I thought it was because she was teased about her father's remarriage, but that didn't seem to be the case. Around the same time, Mark's attitude towards me also changed. He used to be always smiling, like when he was selling, but lately, he stopped smiling at home, becoming more sullen. He even started calling me "Hey, you." Emily's behavior seemed to follow his lead. I thought maybe I was lacking in some way, so I tried not to cut corners with the housework and watched over Emily carefully. I wanted Emily to grow up to be a respectable adult. But contrary to my hopes, Emily's attitude toward me worsened day by day. Calling me an old lady had become the norm for her. I never heard words of gratitude from Emily anymore. What was strange was that at parent-teacher conferences in elementary school, Emily's behavior was normal, and she wasn't rude at all. Mark talked normally with Emily, even smiling sometimes. This meant that her terrible behavior was directed only at me. This hurt me even more. Even if I tried to talk to Mark, his attitude was distant, a complete change from before. I had no one to confide in. I continued my life with a heavy, dark weight on my heart. Inside my home, I kept becoming more and more isolated. The extent of my isolation within my own home just kept getting worse. Since middle school, Emily stopped telling me about school, and Mark would attend school events. I was in a state where I had to learn about the schedule for school events from my neighbors. Mark and Emily seemed to get along well, going out together sometimes. I wanted to be treated as a family by Mark and Emily too. I had always wanted to live happily together. I never imagined it would be this painful to have that wish unfulfilled. And Mark's attitude towards me continued to worsen. Dust is piling up on the stairs. Clean it up. You're a stay-at-home wife, aren't you? The toilet paper is almost out. Are you even cleaning the bathroom? And you're really dense, you know. I frequently received such remarks from Mark. Originally, when we first got married, we both shared household chores. Mark had been doing housework while living with Emily. He was happy at first to share the chores with me. But now, I do all the housework. Mark used to say it was wrong for a stay-at-home wife to do all the housework. Emily was an easy child to take care of, but this somehow made things worse for me. When I tried talking to Mark, he just dismissed it as my lack of effort. In the end, everything was my fault. So, the more I tried talking to Mark, the heavier my heart felt. He would nitpick my housekeeping, constantly criticizing. You can't even clean properly, no improvement after all these years. Do you lack learning ability? Mark looked down on me with disdain. All I could do was apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Please forgive me. Mark sighed dramatically, as if exasperated. Even if you try hard, you won't be able to do it. That's why you get scolded. Always saying you'll do it, but have you ever? Mark's words kept chipping away at my heart. As time passed, I remained worn out, and Emily turned 18. I was curious about Emily's plans after graduation, but she wouldn't tell me. Neither would Mark. By then, I had stopped talking to Mark and Emily unless absolutely necessary. I overheard Emily and Mark discussing her future after graduation. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I wanted to know, so I listened until the end. I got it. I can go to college on a recommendation, and I even got a scholarship. Thanks to you, Dad. Thank you. I could hear the joy in Emily's voice. She never spoke to me like that. Good for you, it's the result of your efforts. All the housework we dumped on that dense housekeeper was worth it. Were they referring to me as the housekeeper? Yeah, she was a good outlet for stress. I heard their mocking laughter. Quietly, I left the spot and locked myself in the bathroom. It was the only place I could be alone. I crouched there, holding my head, and cried. To think that Mark and Emily saw me in such a light. I had endured for the past 10 years. No matter how much my heart nearly broke, I continued being Emily's mother and Mark's wife. Even when I felt at my limit and my heart screamed in pain, I forced myself to keep going. There were times I felt I couldn't get up, but I forced myself to, making lunchboxes, preparing breakfast, doing laundry, and other housework. Honestly, it hurt to even lie down. But if I did that, I feared I would never again be needed by Mark and Emily. Driven by this fear, I continued to live in exhaustion. Honestly, I don't remember much about this period. One day, after going shopping, a neighbor told me something shocking. Tomorrow was Emily's high school graduation. I couldn't admit I didn't know, so I just smiled vaguely and left. As soon as I got home, I collapsed onto the sofa. I had always thought about making Emily a respectable adult. The graduation from high school was supposed to be a milestone for that. Again, I was the only one left out. In this house, I'm forbidden to have a smartphone or use a computer. The only thing I have is a simple flip phone that can only make calls. Since Mark handles all the school communications, I don't have any mom friends. I had no way to get information about the school. Still, I learned about sports days and recitals from neighbors or overheard children's conversations, and secretly attended them. I wanted to properly attend the high school graduation and celebrate Emily's step into adulthood. While I was crying on the sofa, Emily came home from school. "Old lady, why are you loafing around? It's so gloomy. You make the whole house dark. Can't you do something about it?" Emily glared at me. Even though it was her fault. If Emily had told me the date of the graduation, I wouldn't have felt this way. For the first time, I felt anger rising from the depths of my heart. "So the graduation is tomorrow. Seems you didn't tell me about it," I asked with a tone of blame in my voice. Emily looked a bit startled by my confrontational words, but then she sighed dramatically. "So what? You're not going to the graduation anyway, so you don't need to know the date." I reacted to Emily's words with surprise, tilting my head. "I never said I wasn't going to the graduation. Don't come. If a plain old lady like you comes, you'll just be a laughing stock. It's my big day. Absolutely do not come." I felt dizzy at Emily's words, about being the laughing stock. Clearly, Emily didn't think of me as family. To her, I was an embarrassing presence. Just this once, I had hoped for forgiveness, but it was denied. Her words to not come pierced my heart. I was truly just a nuisance, clearly told so by Emily herself. That night, Mark came home with a suit in a dry cleaner's bag. He had taken his suit to the cleaners himself, without asking me. Of course, he knew about Emily's graduation. When I saw the suit, Mark commented, "Right, you didn't hear about it from Emily." He looked at me with a mix of pity and a smirk. Clearly, I was the least needed in this house. Thinking I was part of the family was just my own delusion. At that moment, I realized my heart had reached its limit long ago. So, I decided to end my role as a family member. The next day, Mark and Emily left together for her high school graduation. I was left behind. And Mark even told me not to bother with dinner as they would eat out. I wasn't invited. The old me would have just silently accepted this treatment. But those days were over. I had decided to leave this house. It was a decision I made last night. As soon as they left, I quickly packed my things, left a note, and left the house. I couldn't be part of Mark and Emily's family anymore. I decided to seek refuge at my parents' house, a 2-hour train ride away. There, I would prepare to sever ties with Mark and Emily. The note I left stated my wish to cut familial ties and live independently, and that further details should be discussed through a lawyer. I hadn't found a lawyer yet, but I knew my father could recommend one. My family home is owned by a wealthy family with extensive land holdings. My father, a well-known figure in the area, owns considerable real estate. Among his contacts, I knew there would be a lawyer. I remembered meeting a lawyer during a New Year's greeting at home. Another task I had to undertake was selling the house where Mark and Emily currently lived. This house was built on land owned by my father, and the construction was funded by him as a wedding gift for me. I had been repaying my father slowly with the money I earned from my real estate job, which was also introduced by him. The house, including both the building and the land, is owned by my father. Legally, it is registered in his name. At the time, Mark might have thought the house was a gift and never asked about the ownership. Probably, he was afraid of offending my father and losing the gift. Mark was the classic home tyrant. Bullish with those he perceived as weaker but obsequious to those above him. I told my father everything that had happened. As I spoke, tears flowed uncontrollably. And I had to pause several times due to sobbing, but my father listened to the end. I saw tears in his eyes too. The most relieving part was that my father didn't criticize my initial decision to marry Mark. At the end, my father said, "You've been through a lot." Afterward, he made several phone calls, and lawyers and real estate managers came to the house. Everything happened quickly from there. It was decided that the house would be demolished. The demolition was scheduled for a week later. In the note I left, I wrote, "Please leave within a week." My father commented sarcastically, "That's quite kind of you." For me, it was just to avoid any later complaints. During the week, I consulted with the lawyer about the divorce. I also shared the whole story with my mother, and we cried together. I can't forget the fleeting look of fierce determination on my mother's face. I also discussed my future plans with my father. The priority was to establish a new foundation for my life. It took courage to talk to my parents, and it was painful, but once I did, my heart felt lighter, and for the first time in 10 years, I slept soundly. A week later, while I was peacefully staying at my parents' house, I received a call on my cell phone. As expected, it was Emily. Honestly, I didn't want to talk to her. Remembering how she had treated me, a black stain spread in my heart. I decided to ignore the call. However, the calls didn't stop, and there were several from Mark as well. They were probably contacting me about the note I left. Or maybe the demolition company had contacted them. For 10 years, Mark and Emily continuously called me old lady and you, exploiting my efforts. And treating me like a mere tool. I had endured such inhumane treatment for a long time. The thought of dealing with them again made me shudder. But I couldn't keep running away. To move forward, I needed to settle the past. And without confronting them, I wouldn't feel at peace. After the way they treated me, I felt I owed them a proper response. I steeled myself and answered the phone. "Hey, old lady. Where are you right now?" The moment I pressed the call button, Emily's screeching voice pierced my ears. Her tone was hurried and laced with panic. It seemed she was in a state of panic. "Leaving such a ridiculous note, you think you'll be forgiven? Where are you now? Come back home right now." I could hear Mark's voice as well. They both seemed to be in a state of panic. I imagined Emily's reaction when she returned from her graduation ceremony. To find no old lady to vent her stress on or to serve as a substitute maid. Moreover, there was the note about divorce and leaving the house. Even if it wasn't Emily, anyone would panic. And it happened on the day of her bright graduation ceremony. I couldn't help but let out a faint smile at Emily's frantic state. Who is this, please?" Emily seemed taken aback by my unexpected response and stumbled over her words. I hung up the phone. Afterward, I called the real estate management company to confirm when the demolition would start. It was scheduled for tomorrow as planned, and Mark had already been informed. I requested to postpone the demolition to the day after tomorrow and asked them to inform Mark about the delay. This gave them one more day. Mark would probably come here. That's when I would deliver my final blow to Mark and Emily. I ignored the dozens of calls from them. The next day, around noon, I heard the doorbell ring. And the sound of knocking on the door. It must be Mark and Emily. They would have wanted to come earlier, but the journey here could be terribly long due to poor connections. Mark and Emily appeared, panting heavily. Evidently having rushed here. I had arranged beforehand for my parents to stay back in another room, so it seemed like I was the only one at home. I led Mark and Emily into the living room. Mark entered hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable around my father. My father is a wealthy and well-respected man in town, with a commanding presence. He is, in a sense, a higher authority than Mark. On the other hand, Emily doesn't seem intimidated at all. She appears fully intent on overpowering me and bringing me back home. Emily plops down on a chair in the living room, crossing her legs and gesturing silently for me to sit opposite her. I take my time preparing tea, moving leisurely before finally sitting across from her. Emily, growing impatient, addresses me. "What's the meaning of all this?" Mark, sitting next to her, places the note I had left on the table. I don't react, just silently meet Emily's gaze. She averts her eyes first, attempting to dispel the awkwardness with a laugh. "What was that 'who is this' act yesterday? Pretty poor performance." I continue to silently stare at Emily. She becomes visibly uncomfortable under my gaze, shifting in her seat and continuing. Look, it's no use. A dumb old lady like you can't survive without us. You're nothing but trash. I almost react to her harsh words but restrain myself, noticing the tremble in her voice. Emily is clearly bluffing. Mark has been silent, just watching how things unfold. Stop being stubborn and come back home, Emily says, trying to confuse and coax me back with her cruel words. As Emily becomes more agitated, I respond more calmly. I don't have a family, do I? Oh, I have parents, but you two are not my family, are you? Emily, clearly out of her element, raises her voice. What are you saying? Dad and I are your family, right? Right, Dad? Emily, feeling at a disadvantage alone, sought support from Mark. Mark looked around nervously, and once he confirmed they were alone, he turned to me with newfound bravado. That's right, you can't live without us, just like Emily says. So you're coming back. Mark started getting bossy all of a sudden when he noticed my parents were nowhere to be seen. Looking back on it now, what a small-spirited man he is. Like I said, I have no family, I replied firmly. No matter what Mark and Emily said, I would continue to treat them as strangers. They were not my family. If they were, they wouldn't have treated me like a slave. A true family supports and helps each other, especially when someone is in trouble. But Mark and Emily were different. For 10 years, they treated me like a servant, a vent for their stress. They insisted this was normal, oblivious to how wrong and cruel it was, unconsciously oppressing me. I marvel at how I endured it for 10 years. Almost impressed with myself. This started when I saw Emily peeking out from behind Mark's back. I had bound myself with the promise to raise her to be a decent adult. I endured and served them for this promise. At least until Emily graduated high school. I had decided that Emily's high school graduation and her moving on would mark the end of our relationship. I had held a faint hope that if Mark and Emily changed their ways and improved their attitudes towards me by the time of her graduation, I would continue walking with them as a family. But they betrayed my expectations, leading to this situation. Everything was decided the day before the graduation ceremony. So now, I confront them with the appropriate attitude. Mark and Emily are no longer my family. Therefore, I will not treat them as such. Realizing the significance of my treating Mark and Emily as strangers, Emily altered her approach. We're family, aren't we, Mom? Stop this silly act, please. Suddenly, she switched from calling me old lady to Mom. Realizing her usual tactics wouldn't work. Mark, swallowing hard, watched Emily and me intently. Even though you're not my birth mother, we've lived together all this time. So please, listen to my request. Her previously defiant posture had changed to one more pleading. I have no obligation to respond to requests from someone who isn't family, I replied, maintaining my composure and emotional distance. Tears appeared in Emily's eyes, and she looked at me desperately. Please, listen to me. The note you left, it's not true, right? You can't really be selling the house. It's not serious, right? Because you're part of our family. Emily's use of the term mom made my skin crawl, especially since her main concern seemed to be the house. She was anxious about losing the house. It was true that the house was going to be gone, but her concern seemed misplaced. In the end, it appeared that as long as she had a place to live, it didn't matter whether I was there or not. No matter how much Emily pleaded, my feelings remained unchanged. She lowered her face, apparently crying. This is some kind of joke, right? You can't be serious with this attitude, Mark said, seemingly upset by Emily's tears, and turned his anger towards me. What's with that note? Come back right now and stop the demolition. Mark was speaking rapidly, driven by anger. I can't do that. The decision has been made, I continued in a restrained voice. Do you think you can get away with doing this to your family? That's why I've been saying repeatedly that they are not my family. Neither Mark nor Emily seemed willing to listen. Please understand. I've already told you, we're not family. I wondered how many times I had to repeat the same thing. Suddenly, Mark stood up and slammed his fist on the table. Don't joke with me. I was startled but managed not to react. Who's joking? After not treating me as family for 10 years, you can't suddenly expect me to behave like one. It's impossible. I ended up raising my voice more harshly than I thought. I'm angry too. I don't show it in my attitude, but anger is bubbling up from deep inside me, about to erupt like magma. That's how unforgivable Mark and Emily's selfish actions were. They trampled on my 10 years of hellish suffering and my efforts to overcome it. I tried to become a family with Mark and Emily. But they rejected it, mocking and using me all this time. How lonely and painful it was to be left out. Mark and Emily wouldn't understand. I wished so many times to be treated like family, but my wish never came true. It took me 10 years to give up. Despite my continuous efforts to build a relationship as a family, as Emily's mother, this is the outcome. A self-mocking smile appeared on my face. Seeing my dry smile, Mark and Emily stared at me in shock. Mark seemed to lose his strength, slumping into the chair. These two, far from understanding my feelings, tried to use me until the very end. No matter how much I cared for Mark and Emily, they never cared for me. Even though I cherished them, they never cherished me. And then, when they found themselves in trouble, they said things like we're family that they never meant, just to use me. It's just too convenient. I feel not just a headache but even nausea. Why did I keep tolerating these people for 10 years? It's strange to think back on it. But there's no point in reflecting now. There's no future for the three of us, Amy, Mark, and Emily, together anymore. All I can do is make Mark and Emily acknowledge their guilt and pay for it. I won't expect or trust anything from Emily or Mark anymore. Mark stood up and apologized. I'm really sorry. Please come back. I beg you. Even with his apology, it doesn't touch my heart at all. I won't extend a helping hand, and I definitely won't think about living together. Just stop it. I'm no longer your family. I'm a stranger. Emily also began to apologize, following Mark. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We're family, so let's go home together. I'm just astounded by this self-serving talk. After treating me like a stranger for 10 years, what now? Come back because we're family? You thought I'd say yes? That's too naive. It's just not happening. It seems I'm no longer able to stay calm. I let my words flow, driven by emotion. Words that I would never have said before, harsh words, escape my lips. Words I had held back out of consideration for Mark and Emily are now spilling out. I don't want to hear any excuses. I can't trust any words. I can't ever imagine us being a family again. At this point, I placed a piece of paper in front of Mark. It was a divorce paper. Already signed by me. Write on the divorce paper now. I'll go and submit it. Write it here. Mark was shaking his head from side to side. Then, he showed me a smile. Think it over, will you? I was astounded by Mark's lack of grace in handling the situation. Such a small-minded man. I had always misunderstood Mark's ingratiating smile. The smile he showed when we first met was a sleazy expression of sizing someone up. I mistook it for the smile of a kind person. It still makes me angry thinking about it. I stood up and called my parents from the back. My parents appeared in the living room. Mark's mouth was agape as if his jaw had fallen off. Oh, my. My father glared sharply at Mark. My mother also had a stern look on her face. Mark shrunk back just from their gaze. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the trouble caused by Linda's misdeed. I thought I heard it wrong. What misdeed of mine? Is Mark still trying to shirk responsibility? My father's eyebrows twitched. But he remained silent. Linda, no, Ms. Linda, left the house on her own. I was just trying to persuade her to come back. Right, Emily? Mark was prompting Emily to agree with his nonsense. Linda's misdeed? Don't be ridiculous. My father's loud voice echoed throughout the house. The windows rattled. Mark and Emily gasped and held their breath. My father stood in front of Mark, bent down to meet his gaze. How could you interpret Linda's actions as selfish? You only think about yourself. You're such a small man. Then, my father turned to Emily. It seems you've done some terrible things too, going along with this man. What did you think of Linda? Fools! Once again, my father's loud voice echoed through the house. Emily was trembling, perhaps terrified. My father stood up, glaring at the two of them in a commanding stance. Emily, you've been causing problems at school too. I've looked into it. Indeed, through my father's connections, I had a detective agency investigate Emily. It turned out she had been forcefully taking money from a girl at school. The victim was too scared to confide in anyone, but my father had arranged to prepare a criminal complaint. Emily, just like how she looked down on me, was doing the same at school. Emily exclaimed, "That's a lie." Did she rat me out? I felt like I saw Emily's true nature. No remorse at all. She was only thinking about getting through this situation. Mark, you too. You've been embezzling money from the company. This was also discovered through the detective agency's investigation. Mark had been faking business trips. I initiated this investigation to strengthen my divorce case, but it unearthed shocking facts about both of them. Why would you even? Is it her? Mark reacted the same as Emily. No remorse. Too unrepentant. They won't just face my punishment, they deserve social consequences too. Then, my mother spoke up. All right, the discussion is over. Sign the divorce papers and leave this house as soon as possible. Mark, sobbing, kept muttering, "I don't want to," but he seemed to give up when my father handed him a pen. He sat down, signed the divorce papers. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 7 p.m. The last train going up leaves at 7:30 p.m. If they miss it, there won't be another train until the morning. In this small town, there are no taxis. If they don't catch the last train, Mark and Emily won't make it to the demolition scheduled for tomorrow. They probably hadn't packed anything, thinking they could persuade me. As I hesitated to tell them, Emily suddenly blurted out something unbelievable in a sulky tone. But this divorce was your idea, right? Dad, you should get alimony. Emily, having been exposed, seemed to become defiant. Both my parents looked shocked. That's impossible. What you've done is essentially domestic violence, a crime. Emily was momentarily taken aback, but then defiantly retorted, "Show me the proof." I placed a notebook on the table. This is a diary I started keeping since I got married. Emily glared at me with a scornful look. You don't even have a smartphone or computer, what kind of evidence could you possibly have? A diary is a valid form of evidence, you know. Not just video, audio, or pictures. Emily looked utterly astonished. That's right, even the lawyer acknowledged it. This diary is a substantial piece of evidence. Mark and Emily, seemingly resigned, hung their heads in defeat. I dramatically checked my watch. Well, you've missed the last train going up. You won't be able to get home tonight. My mother looked at Mark and Emily with a smug expression. That's right. There are no taxis around here. I wonder if there's even a decent hotel nearby. All right, we're done here. Get out now. Mark and Emily were hurried out of the house. From the second-floor balcony, I could see them rushing towards the station, probably incredulous that the last train left so early. Watching their flustered figures, I felt the weight in my heart starting to lift. Some loose ends remained, but I felt a sense of closure. Mark and Emily, having missed the last train, couldn't find a taxi and ended up walking for about an hour to find a hotel. When they got home the next day, demolition was already underway, but they managed to salvage only their clothes. Unbeknownst to them, I had temporarily stored the furniture, appliances, and my belongings in a warehouse. Later, I received a report from my lawyer that the divorce, including the alimony claim, was finalized. Mark, initially reluctant to pay, complied after pressure was applied to his company. According to the detective agency, Mark was fired for embezzlement. And Emily's scandal led to her expulsion from high school, not to mention ruining her chances for college. Mark, now jobless, could only afford to rent an old, small apartment far from the station. There, he lives with Emily, who dropped out of high school. Emily blames everything on Mark, and he constantly criticizes her, leading to endless arguments, as reported by the detective agency. I had quit my part-time job at the real estate agency and was considering my next move, when my father suggested I help with the family business. I took a job at his resort property management company. Living in a resort area is a big change from city life, but being surrounded by nature has been a refreshing change. I also got a dog, so I don't feel lonely living alone. For now, this dog is all the family I need. I plan to live a peaceful life, just me and my dog.